everybody, and welcome back to the Prepper Post News for Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. This is Perrin Lovett on behalf of Freedom Prepper, and yeah, I've got to reach out and manually activate the camera. Something seems to be wrong with the remote. One of my technical foibles that I'm sure you enjoy, whether you're watching at YouTube, at the community, or if you're listening, I guess you can't see it if you're listening to the podcast at Anchor and all of the other places where the podcast is found. Welcome back. We've got a great show starting and ending with different types of inspiration with many kinds of news sandwiched in between. This is something, there's a lot of stuff I always have to edit out and a lot of things I always forget. Last week or this weekend, we lost Hank Aaron. A major blow to the world of baseball and sports in general. Larry King also died. A great loss to the world of interviews and media that's more than just control sound bites. But we had a lot of great victory this past weekend, and this is something that I kind of briefly threw out as a post at the community. If you're looking for whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it's in prepping, in business, life, education, whatever, you want a real model of determination and winning at all cost, well, not all cost, but winning no matter what the odds, look no further than Tom Brady. If you're, I have not watched much football at all this season, college or pro. I was a New England fan, and then of course Tom left New England after 20 seasons and 6 Super Bowl victories, 9 appearances, 6 wins, an unheard of record. And he's with Tampa Bay. He wanted to move to Florida. Tampa was the natural location choice. Maybe it didn't seem like the right choice from a guy who always wants to win, but the situation, the circumstances just don't dictate to him. It's the other way around. And now he is leading Tampa Bay back for his 10th Super Bowl appearance, and having beaten Green Bay in a great game last, Sunday afternoon. So let that sink in. 6 wins, very likely going for number 7. I don't think anybody has ever been to 10 Super Bowls, let alone won that many. He keeps setting records at one after the other. He's old for a quarterback. He's old for a football player. At an age, he's 43, which sadly is still, I'm older than the greatest quarterback in sports history. That's kind of sad. But it doesn't seem like he's even slowing down. In fact, it almost seems like he's in his prime, just starting to hit his stride. So, is he going for 20 appearances and, 13 wins? We don't know. We'll find out. It'll be the first time that any team has ever hosted a Super Bowl in their home stadium. So, Tom Brady, home field advantage. The Super Bowl has become his show. I'm predicting another win, number 7. So if you look, and I've got a story from the Stamford Advocate. This, of course, is all over the news, certainly the sports news. If you scratch the surface of Brady, you find out that he's one of those people that's just totally different. And, at the NFL level, these guys are the best of the best. And he is, and out of the ranks of the quarterbacks comes the group of the all-time elites. And he's another step beyond that. And the reason why is it's not a job, it's not a hobby, it's not a game. It's his life, it's his lifestyle, and he, lives it probably every minute that he's awake, and he probably dreams about it at night. If you read anything about him, he lives to train. He's always pushing himself. Without strong-arming anybody, he pushes everybody around him. And, this season has proven that it wasn't just the Belichick New England magic. I think they still have some great things ahead of them. That's a great program. But for one man to move a mountain, look at the Tom Brady example. Just total dedication to craft, never stopping the work that goes into it, and never settling for anything less than victory. So, what a great inspiration for everybody. And I've got some great winners and some losers in the news here. We have with Dr. Tony Fauci, we've got one of the biggest winners this side of Tom Brady. Salary-wise, in terms of federal government salaries derived strictly from tax dollars, Tony Fauci is the highest paid employee in the federal government, making, let's see here, the last year available, I think, was 2019, $417,608, which is $17,608 more than the president makes. Of course, the president has all kind of other benefits, but Tony has been there for quite some time. From 2010 to 2019, he earned, I'm sure he earned every penny of it, he earned $3.6 million, and they're projecting that if he stays in another 5 or 10 years, he'll earn so much more, probably going to get some raises. I guess that's really good work if you can get it. He is monetarily a winner. Now, that money, of course, comes from taxes and debt, taxes and inflation. So if anybody loses, again, that would be you. But as I said, the man is earning every penny. He is fighting the greatest battle of our times. Forget the Super Bowl, forget elections and practical politics. We have the worst pandemic ever in the history of the human race, and it keeps getting worse because the virus just keeps mutating. And it's probably going to mutate forever, and this thing will never end. So Tony's going to have a job, and he's on the job, I trust. I've got some stories here you can check out. All the stories linked up at freedomprepper.com. Around the world, others of us are not quite as lucky. I'm sure there may be one or two of you who make $400,000 a year, which is, with inflation factored in, that's middle class. That's legitimate middle class. Used to be wealthy, now it's just getting by a little better. People aren't doing that around the world. I found a story from the Economic Times of India. 5 reasons why wealth inequality is just spiraling out of control. Take a look at those. It's either number 2 or number 3 is the COVID factor. This is the inequality virus. I'm not quite sure what they mean by that, but I think I understand their proposed solutions, which sound oddly familiar to what we've been hearing. We need green, fair, and equitable redistribution of everything, something or another, to fix this problem that I thought the mask and the vaccine was going to fix. It's never going to end. It's never going to end until we turn it off. Also, a little closer to home, Canadians. We have Canadian viewers and members of the community. You guys are in for some rough inequality because President Trump is making America great. No, excuse me, President Biden. Joe Biden is the president of the United States. He's instituting a policy among all the federal agencies to buy American. It's like his Sam Walton program. And this threatens to upset some of the $725 billion a year trade balance between the United States and Canada, one of the most prosperous and best working trade agreements in the world. A lot of Canadians are worried. What if they stop buying from us? What if we this goes back to the dog catching the car. People in the U.S. are going to lose their jobs. Other people who thought they were happy with the change might lose out on paper products, oil, you name it. Take a look at that. And here's a story about the real inequality. Off Guardian carried an interesting op-ed. It's pretty long. I can sum it up pretty well. I call it the repo imbalance. And this is something I've talked about several times on this show in the past few months. In September of 2019, the Federal Reserve made a massive purchase entry into the commercial bank repo markets on a nightly basis, always operating at night like vampires. Um, you know, it got totally glossed over with the events of 2020. You may recall there was one big story that just would not go away, that took over everything, to include the economy, and it destroyed it. Even though, if you had been watching for the previous 5 months, it was pretty obvious that the economy was in horrible shape, as evidenced by the fact that the Fed was having to come in night by night and give trillions, or we don't know, tens or dozens of trillions of dollars to these banks that were otherwise doing just fine, right? That's why you need massive infusion. You need an entire year's worth of GDP in a few months because you're doing so well. Someone finally noticed this and wrote it up in a very detailed fashion. You can take a look at that. Not tooting my own horn, but I noticed this back when it was happening. I caught it. I caught the Wall Street Journal the first night. I said, what is this? $75 billion overnight? That doesn't sound good. And then it happened again and again. I said, something's up. And then when the news story came along, January, February of last year, I said, aha, this looks like a cover-up. And I've got validation here. So check that out and know that you're at the right place for information before it really becomes a thing, even if we can't really do anything about it. How many of you have ever even been to Liberty Street in New York? I have, and never, ever, ever want to go back. Because up there, like in so many places, it's do as we say, not as we do. That's a theme of the elites all over the world, and it's not just the bankers and the media, the big club billionaire elites. It's the politicians too. It's people like Donald Trump, I'll throw him in there, and especially Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. These are two Catholics, who you would never know it by the way that they conduct their business affairs on behalf of the people that they represent, throwing the doctrine of the church and the Bible right out the window. It is nice sometimes to have a legitimate leader come along and correct these kinds of people. We have an archbishop out of California who was talking about San Fran Grand Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker. She speaks as a high-level, important government leader and as a private citizen, he said. And on the question of equal dignity of human life in the womb, she also speaks in direct contradiction to a fundamental human right that Catholic teaching has consistently championed for 2,000 years. She does get it. She just doesn't care. And it is nice at least to have somebody, and this, the saddest part of this is everybody knows and nothing gets done. But it is business people too. These private corporations that start with a government charter, they're all over telling you what to do and how to live while they do something totally different. We learned that in the very historic 2020 U.S. presidential election, which gave us Joe Biden as president of the United States of America, we learned that mail-in ballots and touchscreen ballots and any kind of ballot you can come up with is a good thing, and it is not evidence of fraud whatsoever, unless it concerns Amazon and Jeff Bezos. If the employees are trying to unionize and they want to take a vote, Bezos steps in and says, nah, you got to vote in person, probably with ID. No mail-in ballots, because those are proof positive of fraud. Do as I say, not as I do. By the way, Jeff, I understand there are some computer programs, maybe, somewhere, I don't know where they come from, that might be able to help you. So I like Bezos. He provides our backup servers sometimes, and I've been known to sell books through his service. So I'm all for Amazon, right? Yeah. I'm also all for freedom all across the West, and I have just fantastic news, if it lasts, out of France. 4 years ago, Marine Le Pen and the National Front came about close to taking over the country and having France for the French, not for the Euromaniacs in Brussels. But their boy Macron won. literally a guy who he wasn't just an agent of the central banking class. He worked, when he used to work, for the Rothschild family itself. So now there's a horrible threat to his power because a recent poll, an early poll, a way too early poll for next year's presidential election, where I'm sure there won't be any fraud whatsoever. It'll be honest like all elections. But the early polling finds that she beats him by about this much. And here's the way it's sold to us by, in this case, the Express. From the spokesman of the people who stole France from the French, they say Emmanuel Macron could see his seat stolen by Marine Le Pen as soon as the first round of the 2022 French presidential election, a new poll has found. He could see his seat. It's his. It's not the people's. The voters didn't put him there. It belongs to him. And oh no, now it's in danger of being stolen from him. By whom? Well, I guess by the voters. It's do as we say, period. France don't go along with it anymore. I predicted a long time ago that next year would be the big French changeover in the sweep of nationalism across Europe, Western Europe, and hopefully spreading all across the West. So voter Le Pen, that's me. You know what to do. And that brings me to our last word, which is another take on the first word of the day, finding inspiration. This time, not at the elite levels, but at the lowest levels on the street. It's the last word is going off grid. And in this country, preppers aside, we have an existing group of people who perpetually live off the grid, and they are the homeless of America. And this is not a story about the homeless, who they are, how they got that way, what we can do, if anything, to help them, whether they like it. This is something that Fabian Omar writes about at Organic Prepper, which you really need to look at least twice a week, about what we can learn from people who already live without traditional shelter, without jobs, banks, money, security, and all the other things that we take for granted. He writes, I'll just give you a little preview, living in the streets leads to physical, psychological, and moral degenerates. Now, that's not necessarily saying that these people are bad or, malicious in any way, but it does take a toll on the body, the spirit, and the mind. Without the protection and conveniences afforded by a fixed roof and ideal conditions, we enter into a world where very little is certain. Nutrition, hygiene, and personal safety suffer, affecting the body and affecting mental and emotional stability in various degrees. He goes on to cover all of the main big prepper topics: food and water, sanitation, safety, shelter, and more. We do tend to take everything for granted. Not necessarily us. We're the people that are trying to build backups and alternatives. It might be a good idea to look at not the conditions that led them there, but the conditions that they survive, that keep people alive on the streets in circumstances that everyone may soon experience to one degree or another. This is going to be more dependent on who you are and where you are, but it's a pound of prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So find the medicine wherever you can, whether it's in the 10th Super Bowl appearance or the poor guy who lost everything and has to survive on the streets. And I will just briefly say a word about, if we can help these people any way we can, we should, to the greatest extent we're able to. But we should also recognize that they, because of who they are, can help us. So it's a great thing. And I just realized again, I don't have my remote. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off by coming up here and we'll fist bump here for the COVID. Y'all have a great Wednesday. I'll see you back tomorrow.